Hello and welcome to This Contains Garlic. You're here with your host Georgia Garlic and
Mark Garlic.
Mark wasn't prepared for that. We're trying to arrange his microphone and we'd started a bit too early. But he's here. Bark Garlic is back.
Barkamus.
Couple of weeks off the old podcast. Reason being just work, really, to be quite honest with you. Sometimes just, you know.
Why do you have to bring it up? If you don't bring it up, then
Nobody knows. Yeah, well, they do, because we do have people saying, like, when's the next podcast? And I'm like, oh, shit. Anyway, we are back. We're back in full force. And today we're talking about something where it does require you to do full force, and that is exercise intensity. We're also going to talk about range of motion.
Yeah.
We're also going to talk about recovery.
Yes.
And then all the fun things in between. So
Yay.
sit back, but you're probably not sitting. You might be walking.
You could be walking.
I hope you're walking.
Or maybe doing a chore. I love doing chores and listening to podcasts.
Yeah, it's weird actually, because whenever I clean the house, I never put my headphones in. But when you seem to hoover the house, you always have like...
Oh, there's nothing better.
I guess, you know, I like the sound of a hoover though.
There's
also
nothing
a weird
better.
thing.
Just a good podcast or something, or like a good playlist or something like that, and then just hoovering or cleaning, washing the dishes.
Yeah, I think music changes lives, honestly.
Yeah, it does.
I think podcasts do, obviously, as well. Hi everyone. But I do think music and training, like people that don't train with music, I have actual
really
issues.
I judge people like that. I'm sorry.
It's not judging. I don't judge somebody. I just think
I'm
not sure we're the same.
I judge.
We're the same breed of human.
Yeah, because in that sense, like I just judge the person, because you really have to, not in a negative way, and you just have to be in a very different mind space.
But then also, I could judge you because, like, how many times do I like go over, because we've been training together, and you're like listening to like some fucking scientist talking to you in your headphones. I'm like just about to go and do an RP like 9 out of 10 or something.
Yeah.
I do not want to be listening to like a scientist talking about like
Quantum
AI or
mechanics.
quantum. Yeah. Like, I need to be like somebody screaming in my ears, or like a really deep techno to like bring myself through.
But to be fair, you do literally listen to like one song
On
over
repeat,
and over
yeah,
and
proper
over
ADHD.
and over again.
But like, I genuinely, and this is the difference between me and you, is I genuinely will obliterate like one song or like one set, like if it's a really good set, like, because obviously my preferred music is techno, like, but like not like hectic techno. Like, what would you describe? Because we were talking about this at my, because sometimes
There's so
it's a bit
many
hectic.
different variations of, let's say, the word techno comes in so many different variations from,
like
you
house
know,
techno, which is a little bit softer, a little bit more like woohoo, and then you've
there's
got
like very commercial techno, which I would imagine, I wouldn't necessarily, I'd like, we had this discussion the other day when we were in the car. I think there's dance, there's EDM, then there's techno, which I would say you could classify, and some people would say we're wrong. Someone like Fisher is a bit techno-y.
Well, do you know what you would say, right? Commercial, your old client Becky Hill, that's commercial house. Well, she also does drum and bass, doesn't she?
Her last that did miss
Mark, no, we're not trying to search a song here. Please stop doing that.
It's a banger.
But she's like in the I would say she's like she's more commercial house. Like, she's in like a lot of like more chart stuff than like sets as such. Fisher, I mean, Fisher's a little bit more commercial now.
And then you go from that into like,
Eli Brown.
Yeah, and then you go even further into that, into like drum
all I can say is that, like, you know, I used to rave a lot back in the day. So did Mark. And then
Adam
we
Beyer,
grew up.
and then you go
Adam Beyer is not nice to listen to
then
live.
you
That's
go
hectic.
that deeper
Like,
techno,
if you want to have an
like
epileptic
Germany,
fit.
like imagine going to Berlin. I can't even imagine what that would be like.
Your last epileptic fit was in Montenegro at a rave, wasn't it?
Yeah.
When you decided to watch Prodigy. If anyone
Prodigy?
knows, what the fuck was it? Prodigy.
What's Prodigy?
What is it? What is it? Prodigy. Whatever the fucking heck.
What is Prodigy?
Who were you listening to?
Prodigy.
Prodigy.
No, Prodigy.
Are you being that weird over that?
No,
What?
you're saying Prodigy. Where's
What? I
the
didn't say
L?
what?
You said Prodigy, not Prodigy.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I thought I got completely wrong, and it wasn't. It was like just the way that you say it.
No,
Like,
it's
I
like
don't
when
have a
you say
list.
millennium.
Okay, well, you don't need to hit me where it's vulnerable, okay? I can't say the word millennium. Yeah, literally, we do it for hours and I still can't.
Prodigy, yes, prodigy.
Yeah, I don't know. But anyway,
Yeah, I
let's
was
get back
mental.
on track because, anyway, I just think exercise and music is something that should go hand in hand. If you don't listen to music, then
Please try.
some people are like, I just don't want to listen to anything. I just need to zone out. But if you're in a commercial gym and
No.
not listening to music, that's a
No,
problem
you
in
just-
my eyes. Like, you're a psychopath.
If you want to zone out, then just put some like yoga music on in your ears,
Or just put your noise cancelling headphones
Some like
on.
rainforests or like whale noises.
Not when you're training, and this is what we're going to talk about today, is exercise intensity, which I'm going to bring us back on track so we don't start talking about rainforest music. Right, so I think in general population terms, exercise intensity is a strange topic. And the reason I say this is because I think for many, many years, people always assumed that when you mentioned the word intensity, it was something related to sort of like HIIT. So like high intensity interval training, technically. And that's where I think like if you were not somebody that regularly lifted weights or were in part of the strength and whatever world, you would probably have assumed that exercise intensity should then directly correlate with high intensity exercise interval training. Now, what we're talking about today is very, very different, okay? We're talking about exercise intensity throughout, obviously, resistance form training. So strength and conditioning training, weights, lifting weights, shall we
Banging
say.
ones, yeah.
Oh God, how banging weights. Do you think that's a bit weird?
Shifting tin.
Oh God, have you got anything not like insightful to say today? or
I've
not?
got loads. I'm just waiting for
I'm
my
just
turn.
waiting for you to shut the fuck up. Anyway, so today we are going to talk about rate of perceived exertion. And we're also going to talk about where you really should be sitting with your exercise intensity.
Yeah.
Again, I want to come back to the point of myself and Mark are specialists in strength and conditioning, resistance form, biomechanics. We are not specialists in the sense of like, we're not running coach, we're not CrossFit athlete, we're not any of this thing. So when we talk about exercise intensity, we are talking directly about what we train on a day-to-day basis and how our clients train. So it does depend and vary. There's always different types of exercise intensity depending what exercise you're doing. But I just want to bring a highlight to that. It will vary depending on what. So let's ask some questions then, Mark.
Yeah, go on.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, what is rate of perceived exertion? And what is the...
What are you asking
Why
yourself?
is it important?
Right, Mark, switch on, because
No,
seriously...
you said ask questions, so
No.
let's establish what that means, because some people might not understand what you just said.
Exactly that. So let's go on to what is rate of perceived exertion. And actually, no, tell people why exercise intensity is actually important in the first place when
I
it
think
comes to progressively lifting.
Exercise intensity is very important because the metabolic adaptation and the mechanical stress that is required for muscle hypertrophy is almost represented in intensity. And when they've done muscle hypertrophy studies, they've realized that there needs to be a certain level of exertion to signal muscle protein synthesis to then prompt the adaptation for muscle growth to happen. So if you're essentially going into the gym or training at home and you're not essentially hitting that threshold, or the movements that you are doing don't substantiate a high enough rate of perceived exertion, then the benefits for muscle hypertrophy are not going to be experienced, because you're not exactly setting off the signals required for adaptation to happen in the first place. So then setting out and trying to quantify your intensity to make sure that you're training hard enough makes the most common sense, so that you can then be certain that every time you go into the exercise into train, you're getting the most bang for your buck in terms of like actually seeing progress.
Yeah, I think it's also important to say that like We spoke about exercise selection, and it was a podcast that did really, really well recently, actually, just because people were very interested about that topic. But I think it also comes down to exercise selection. So when Mark says, like, you know, you need to be training at hard enough intensity to obviously adapt, you know, it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to then repeat the same movements every single session, and expect to obviously you know, every time your rate of perceived exertion is super high in them. That this is when it directly links to exercise selection, because there's going to be certain exercises that your rate of perceived exertion needs to be much higher than others. You know, you can't necessarily expect, like, on certain smaller muscle groups, you know, that you're going to be seeing as higher rate of perceived exertion. Like, in fact, when you look at something like the smaller muscle groups, or let's take the upper body, so not your back, I'm talking like your upper body, smaller muscle groups, obviously they require a little bit more volume, and also like TLC to obviously cater to building muscle on. But if you go and do, like, you wouldn't necessarily, like, I would work myself to relative failure in a way, but I always work myself to a relative rep range most of the time. And I think when it comes to, like, the actual rate of perceived exertion, like, you don't really want to be taking like upper body exercises and just working like a 4 to 5, 6 rep range. Like, it's almost just pointless in my opinion, because you need to be getting adequate volume through. So your rate of perceived exertion wouldn't necessarily be the top end of like a lower body like exercise or something of a bigger muscle group. It would tend to be less. And so when we look at RPE, we're looking at on a scale of 1 to 10. And so we always suggest that clients would train on the upper end about an 8 out of 10. I would say that naturally myself and Mark probably train more like an RPE of 9 on average, like, you know, but my low, coming back to the point, like, if you're doing the smaller muscle groups with exercise selection RPE, you probably would only be sitting at 6, you know, until you get to those last reps of sets where it's obviously a struggle, because, you know, because RPE, as I always say, is so different to then looking at something like, I don't know, like a trap bar deadlift or a leg press or like a squat or a deadlift or, you know, RDL. Like, these are things where we push for a lot more weight, which naturally means additional resistance is obviously going to make it harder, but we don't necessarily work for huge amounts of volume, you know, in the sense of, like, in your sets, you're not doing like 12 plus reps of like huge amounts of weight, which means your RPE needs to be...
Yeah, the weight needs to be relative to the amount of repetitions that you're doing. And if you do a certain amount of repetitions and you finish the set and you ask yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, how hard was that? If you're sitting at below a 6, then the chances of you reaping the rewards of building muscle, building strength is going to be 0%, which, again, some people are like, you know, you can't necessarily diminish people's efforts to exercise because there's a lot of other quantifiable benefits for moving your body, but this is under the assumption that people are going into a training session or resistance session with the hopes of adjusting their body composition, changing, getting stronger, getting more muscle definition. Again, there's certain prerequisites. That's why certain modalities, yoga, Pilates, bar, all these movements, again, we're not trying to diminish them. They're very good for, you know, the heart and the soul, but are they at a threshold to stimulate muscle protein synthesis, to see muscle gain, to see strength gains? The answer to that is no. The threshold and the stimulus presented by those modalities are far below the threshold required, or the rate of perceived exertion, which I think needs to be 6 out of 10.
The thing is that I comfortably say this, and I was saying this to you the other day, and this is going a little bit off topic, but it's still on the same topic of how many women that obviously, like, I train and you train, you know, who we look over, whether they're online or we train, you know, if we train somebody in person, they're always going to be at relative weights they should lift because we're the ones doing it. But, you know, same virtually. But with our online clients, there's loads and loads of times I see, like, our female clients lifting and I'm like, wait, you've got so much more in the tank. Like, there is, like, this looks far too comfortable. And I think, you know, and again, I come back to Mark's definition of what we're talking talking about is for somebody that wants to see like great muscle definition, a really good body composition, feel strong, feel fit, feel healthy. Like, we're not talking about somebody that just needs to plod along. You know, we're talking about those that want to take a physique goal to another level. But so, you know, I then come back to the point of how many I personally think, and hand on my heart, and whether you're one of our male clients or not, hopefully you don't take offense to this, females, women are by far stronger than majority of men that train, okay? The only stuff that limits women is either how much they're put down in a gym space by men, or the fact that they just don't think that they should be lifting that, because they're like, well, isn't that a bit big? That's a bit big for me. I shouldn't necessarily be doing that.
90% of the battle.
And the biggest thing, the biggest change I saw in my own training was just like, you can't have this element that just because evolution has said you're a man and you're a woman does not place you in the realms of who's stronger. You know what I mean? And like, you should be weaker and you can be stronger, because in my eyes it should be either equal or the woman's stronger. Like, so I just think it's one of these things when it comes to RPE, it's quite hard for, you know, I see specifically with women lifting weights, feeling comfortable enough to go, do you know what, I've got this 100%. And I see this with so many clients who I know have got a huge amount of physical strength to give, but what's holding them back is that almost, you know, it's just not what society has really told me I should be doing, you know. And I will see women row with like even like a 10 kilo dumbbell and be like, what? Yeah. Like, that is, you should be doing double. Do you know what I mean? They're like, what? At fuck? Least, yeah. Really? Like, you know, and it's one of these things where, especially when you're wanting to see muscle growth, like, if you're not taking your training to this relative intensity where like you're like, fuck, I don't know if I can do another rep, or like to the point where, you know, you're working at relative rep range and you're increasing these weights, you're getting strong, you know, you're just not going to see the ideal result that you want to. And I think, again, it comes back to pushing yourself out of your comfort zone with RPE and being also really quite honest with yourself. Like, being honest with yourself in your training is something that's going to see you surpass physical like limitations 101. Because if you say to yourself, oh, that was kind of easy, but it's all right, we'll just do it again, do you know what I mean? It's fine. It's exactly why, if you're wanting to see great muscle growth, you need to go in with a structured like strength program. You can't be going to group classes and expecting to see our ultimate results, because a group class is great for community, get you moving, get you fit, get you healthy, but you know, it's too much volume, it's too much chop and change, it's too different, or it's too repetitive.
That's also quite a good thing to also try and quantify, is that there needs to be a high level of intensity, but too much or too high intensity then has a very negative impact. So can you try and quantify or just talk through, I think, what happens or why too much or like very high intensity for a person that is, let's say, potentially sedentary or has a history of being sedentary, why that would be problematic?
I think like expectations are always an issue here, because again, I think I link it back to exercise selection. So usually when you see the words marketed like high intensity, you're looking majority of the time, might be a couple of dumbbells involved, do you know what I mean? But it would be more body weights. And it's the reason it's high intensity is you're working for periods of time as hard as you possibly fucking can, you know, and then you break and then you go again. But the problem with that sort of rather than high intensity RPE where you're doing I don't know, heavy backwards lunge with like huge amounts of kilos for 8 reps either side, is that the amount of volume that's done, because you're doing as much as you physically fucking can in a time interval, do you know what I mean? That also means you're damaging exercise technique, form. And again, for somebody that's sedentary, you're going to get up now and just start throwing yourself on the floor and think that your body's going to be like, yeah, this is great. You know, it's not. And the thing is, though, I always say this with clients, is a lot of people come to us and they are obliterated from doing all of this stuff. And, you know, no matter what age you are, obviously the older you get, the worse worse that's going to have on, effect it's going to have on you, because likely is you would have picked up aches and pains from numerous injuries or whatever, from whether it was just your day-to-day lifestyle or exercise. So when you look at intensity with a sedentary individual and they look at something like high intensity exercise, they're thinking about how much can I do and how quickly can I do it, and I need to get it done. You see, when that's a massive problem. Now, high intensity, again, on our form of methodology of training, which is obviously resistance based, where we're lifting, there comes to a point where there is going to have to be a relative amount of recovery. So I would say that, it doesn't mean that you're limited as a sedentary individual to then be training at an RPE of like fucking 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10. But then what would come in for the sedentary is you're likely to feel a lot more feedback, because you haven't really done that. And your body's like, what the fuck? So, your recovery then becomes more important. So, because your body's like, please, like, give me like a day off, this is too much. So, but a lot of the time with an all or nothing mindset towards exercise, say you're new to it or you've been very sedentary and you think, fuck, I'm a lazy fuck, I need to get up and do something, is it does go all, like nothing or all. And that has such a direct effect on picking up injuries that then stop you. Do you know what I mean? Like so many times, again, like how do you behave after an injury? Do you get back up and you say, right, well, I need to work on those weaknesses and I'm going to have to do that and suck it up? Or are you somebody that's like, oh, I'm going to sit there and just do nothing? Unfortunately, a lot of professionals say to people when they're injured, like, don't do anything. And it's like, oh, wow, that's made it so much worse. It's not to do, it's just about what you are doing. It's not like, don't do something. It's what are you doing? So, I come back to the point of like intensity, exercise selection. When we talk, rate of perceived exertion, as I said, heavy weights against like resistance based training that works normally within a rep range of 6 to 12, 6 to 15. Not like 45 burpees in a minute, and so these have very different contexts. But I do think, don't think that if you are somebody that's a beginner, that you have to be training at such high intensities all the time. You don't, but you need to be, when something gets comfortable, that's when you need to be thinking, I need to progress this, not this is comfortable, I'll stay comfortable. But again, let's quickly talk about recovery.
Go on.
Because I think, again, coming back to this all or nothing mindset with training, is a lot of people think, well, the more I do, the better, and it's not the case, If you're a proper gym rat, which I would definitely describe us as, when it comes to rest day, it's almost torturous, do you know what I mean? Because like we fucking love training. But like by the time I get to my rest day, which today is one of them and yours the same, my body is literally like, please give me a rest day, because my intensity has been so ridiculously high in the sense of what I've done relative to what I've been doing, the volume, that by the time it comes to rest day, you should be like, fuck, I'm ready for this. And if you're not, can I be honest with you? If your body's like on rest, you know what I mean, and you're fucking pumped, ready to go, you've got no sort of like, oh, wow, I felt that. You're not training hard enough. And how many times we've had conversations with clients where...
I wish I had that... Fam.
Fuck, should we bring that in?
Yeah.
We, like 6 years ago, we said we were going to do an entrance fucking tune to this podcast. That went down the drain, didn't it? Wow. Yeah. What were we just talking about? Let's
if you're not feeling some form of
so
DOMS, or at least some form of stiffness, or at least a sensation of exertion, then
it's not okay for you to be rigid in DOMs. But be honest. If you're a beginner to taking yourself through ranges of motion, okay, remember this. Okay, forget the additional resistance. This also comes down to the range of motion you're putting your body through that it's never been through or hasn't been through for a very long time. Yeah. So imagine then just like lengthening or stretching through it, like something you're obviously going to get feedback. Now then go and put additional resistance on top of that. You can understand why you wake up and you're like, I can't sit on the toilet, Should you be like that after every session? No. Like, I don't get So like we wouldn't get DOMs, do you know what I mean? Like I wouldn't wake up and be like, oh my God, but I would get feedback that I've had like I'm fatigued, do you know what I mean? So like I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to be able to do this set like because I'm fatigued. But that then obviously the stronger you get, the more muscle you have, your recovery is like we put ourselves in a very good position to recover. But that's also another thing. How many people do you put to put themselves in a position to actually recover properly, sleep, food, nutrition, you know? But we say to clients all the time, they're like, a couple of weeks in, we'll get like a check-in and it'll be like, loving training. This is exactly what we get. So, loving training. Oh my God, blah, blah, blah. Started doing some running after the sessions. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, don't, Georgia.
No, I know I could. And I'm like, and I've said this to so many clients.
Yeah, just thought I'd just jump, hop up and do a pull-up and then hurt myself.
Oh, clients, if you're listening to this, please stop doing that because you only end up worsening yourself. We have a lot of people that are like, just tried this and now I've got raging lower back pain. I'm like, oh, it's the reason why you shouldn't really be trying it.
In the first
unfortunately, there's just stepping stones in life and we all have to go through those stepping stones to get to different levels, you know what I mean? And we have to be patient with those stepping stones.
Yeah.
You know, we can't be all or nothing with it. But a lot of time, it's like, oh, I thought I'd do some running after my session, and I literally turn around to them, and I know I've said this so many times, and I say, I'm sorry to say this.
Please don't.
No, not that. If you have got enough energy in the tank to be running on the treadmill for 30 minutes after your fucking training session, you are not training hard enough.
Preach.
Like, and this is again, like, this is not...
That is a preach.
This is coming down to what we would program for somebody. You can look at that and you could go, right, I don't know, let's think of a superset quick. Like
just a very simple squat, one, like a split squat and a one-arm row.
A one-arm row, do you know what I mean? And like they have done a split squat like comfortably, I don't know, for 12 reps either side, not progress their weight.
Like you said, when it comes down to rate of perceived exertion, the first person comes in and does a 4 or a 3 out of 10, and then the other person comes in and does a 9 out of 10. It's just completely different outcomes.
Yeah, it really is completely different outcomes. And I think it's one of these things where,
But the person that does the 3 out of 10 then finishes the session and goes, well, that was easy. Maybe I should do more.
So if you look at an exercise for what it is, if you don't understand the technicalities, the range of motion, the tempo, I could go on for fucking ages.
Yeah, but let's just assume that the person neglects all of that. So they come in, they grab a 4 kilo dumbbell, they rush the reps.
Forget that.
Do you know what I mean?
That. When people look at an exercise, they go, okay, cool, I'll just get that done. Do you know what I mean? It's like that split squat one, okay, cool, I'll get that done. Not going to bother about how I'm doing it, why I'm doing it, what I'm going to do. Where is your purpose, is my point.
You definitely hit on something with regards to the purpose and the intention of the exercise. Because again, if you're going in and you're rushing through everything, you're daydreaming, you're not focusing on, like Georgia said, the tempo of the movement, the proper weight selection, then of course you're going to finish the session and think to yourself, well, I need to do more.
Yeah.
But in reality, when you go into the session and you pick the right weights and you go through the allotted amount of volume and frequency, you should not be able to then go and exert yourself after that.
Yes, and do you know what though? This is, I think I've just highlighted in my head, and again, it's not a conversation we haven't had before, but so let's just put context. Let's bring you back to 2000 and fucking Christ, not in the 20s. So obviously myself and Mark have been gym owners. We've opened up gyms around the world. We've also been in London. We've always been client facing. Okay. And when we went and we always had an online element. It was very basic, but we always had an online element to our business. And then when COVID hit, we had a complete and utter surge in not only following, but obviously engagement and people wanting to buy from us and how could they do it. But again, because there was more mass market, the price relation became a bit of like, an issue, because we are a premium service in which we pride ourselves in the fact that we offer a premium service. Our clients we have very good relationships with. We don't take on anybody and everybody. We like to know you, you like to know us. We have a very, very good relationship overall. Now put that kind of service to a mass market who's coming in hot and fast for training in COVID at home. So we felt a huge amount of pressure to create training programs that were catered just as like you ticking over, okay? And I remember receiving messages from somebody that purchased like a beginner program like years ago saying, saying, oh, I bought it this, I've gone through workouts, like it's so quick, and you know, like it's just like it's too easy for me. Like can I have a refund so I can go to the intermediate level? And I thought, how can you even educate somebody on the fact that what you've just written and put together, for example, is a fucking great training session, but what comes down to it is, what's your purpose utilizing that? Is it because you wanted a structure to get it fucking done, or did you want to look through all the training principles and actually think, am I doing this properly? Because they're also trying to and that's when we were like, I physically can't do my job. Do you know what I mean? I can't, and nor should I, for being paid absolutely fuck all. Do you know what I mean? Like, let's be honest, like in the grand scheme of things, you know, should I be giving out the advice that like a premium client of ours, you know, the coaching client receives from us, in order for them to think that that training program is a viable option for them to be doing? And this is when I was like, I have to do my job. And I think you were the same. And I think we like saying that this is entirely highlighted reasons why we took so many elements of our business away and focused entirely on a bespoke coaching, because we can't. And again, you know, it's this whole thing of like, when you have a very good client relationship and your clients trust you and your methods and it works, they're obviously going to always give you feedback. Like, should I be training? Like, is this, you know, and you're going to be like, yeah, no, you need to push harder. That looks great. Well done. Do you know what I mean? Keep it going. You can't do that on a basic generic program. You just physically fucking cannot, because a lot of the time people are just not interested. And so that's why you have to take yourself into a niched market enough of those that are interested, so that they do see the best result from it. So you know, it's one of these things where like people think it's so straightforward, like what the fuck.
I don't think so, because again, when you if that's most people's preconceived notions of it, then that's fine. But then again, take your feelings out of the equation and let's look at the statistics and the data. Look at your physique right now and look at your physique 5 years ago. Like, if you haven't made shitloads of progress and you look like a completely different person, then you probably need to pay attention to certain elements, because a lot of people spin their wheels, do you know what I mean? And they go round and round in circles and they just look the same. You know, whether they're people that go to the gym very often.
It's so demotivating, because let's be honest, let's take it back to a vanity point here. And I've been fucking morbidly obese, little fatty, being called being fat left, right and fucking centre. I've been abused the whole of my life over being overweight, okay? And then I decided, you know what, I've fucking enough of my own shit, do you know what I mean? I'm going to sort this out. Now, I've been in these situations where you're going to have stagnant progress, do you know what I mean? Because if anything, you're the one that's making it stagnant. And I think this is one of these things where if you are somebody that sits there and complains that you're in the same position but you've not changed anything, then you're going to probably have a bit of an issue. And I see this in the gym quite a lot, where people come in and they just do this like, we're in there obviously 5 times a week. And there's obviously people in there also 5-6 times a week, probably 7 times a week, because they're thinking to do more than less, you know what I mean? And they're literally doing the same exercises 7 days in a row. Like, and they're not increased on weights. You definitely know that they haven't seen physical progress. They're frustrated. You can tell they're frustrated.
Yeah, but just everything. Like,
and then people don't take it back to the vanity point.
Yeah.
People are like, this doesn't fucking work. Because why? Only recently, and only when people are like, you need to exercise 15 minutes a day for your heart health, otherwise you're all going to die. Do you know what I mean? That people actually, why do you exercise? Because I can tell you what, if I didn't see any kind of muscle vibes. If I did not look the way that I look right now and I put that much energy and effort into something, I would not do it. I would be like, fuck that.
Sure.
I'm not interested.
Everybody goes to the gym or lifts weights or exercises in general
To
because
be
they want to
physically
look
better.
Yeah, they want to
yes.
look better. They want to feel better.
And you can't say that people go, yes, they go for the mindset reason, but your mindset is a product of your day-to-day routine. Do you know? But that is yes, there are anomalies in every situation. There are predisposed situations with general population, but the usual times, the same as why in the UK nobody can seem to pull themselves out of their arse until it comes to a summer holiday. It's a vanity purpose. You don't want to look shit in your fucking swimming shorts or bikini.
Yeah.
So you're like, I better go to the fucking gym and get on the recliner
but again,
bike.
I guess we can't. Like, it's just that is the UK.
Yeah, and then you wonder why. You've
Yeah,
got how
but
many
that
people
is-
out of work,
but
a
that's
national health,
destined.
here we go again, that's on the fucking floor. No specialist to help all of this. And then you shortchange. None of us professionals can agree with each other, which is just embarrassing. Do you know what I mean? You've got people saying left, right, and centre. I would personally say that the nutrition market is fucked. Like, that's really so fucked. I don't think we're ever going to come out of a fucked nutrition industry.
no.
I'm really, unfortunately, I
don't
can't
think
see it
so.
happening. It's just one thing after the next. I said to Mark that if you actually listened, if you had done everything that the media had told you to do, you'd probably be dead in the terms of your health. Like, it's like the next fucking article, drink this, have that, don't do this, do this, don't do that. Oh, suddenly smoking helps you lose weight. Don't do that. Oh, you've got heart cancer. It's just like, it's just like never ending. But, it's one of these things where I just don't, I personally, I just don't, it's a shit show because when it comes to actual exercise,
Yes.
you've got people that form into little communities, like
like
let's put it
diets.
into community, like kind of like diets, but you've got
Like
like
diets.
Zumba dance,
Zumba.
dance
Oh my
exercise. Do you know what I mean? No, we fucking know the Zumba instructor, yeah. But people like that because they just clap and go and do a grapevine, and there's hardly any energy really putting in unless you are a Latino with hips that don't lie. Do you know what I mean?
okay, we
Let's be
get
honest.
it. We get
Me
it.
in a Zumba class would be a coordination of a fucking
We get it.
retard.
You just want to shake your hips to a little bit of reggaeton. We
Look,
get it.
and look, people are like, dance makes you feel great. Good, it's exercise. Cool. And then
Okay.
you've got like CrossFit, like Olympic lifting. They're slightly different, Oh God, they'd
Yeah.
probably find them. You've got the calisthenics group.
Yeah,
You've got the HIIT group. You've got the body weight group. You've got Pilates group. You've got the yoga group.
bar.
You've got the
My
powerlifting
worst.
group. You've got the strength and conditioning anal group. Then you've got the like bodybuilding group.
Yeah, you got
But
the bodybuilders.
I would say that, like, relative to the industry that we place ourselves in the sense of methodology that we're qualified in and enjoy, we would slightly agree with each other. We
With
would.
what?
With an industry opinion of things. We like it's not as warped as the nutrition where it tells people to do like fucking absolutely balls stupid things.
Yeah.
You know do you know what I mean? Like, it's not going to be. It would be a
Yeah.
program of, oh no, sorry, I think they should be doing 4 sets at 8 reps rather than.
Yeah,
it's like,
I
oh,
see what you
God's
mean.
sake.
It's a lot more standardized where you're gonna, everyone's essentially gonna give you a variation of a squat, a pull, a push, just the fundamentals of human movement. Because again, there's only so many ways your joints can articulate. There's only so
Like,
many.
there's only a certain.
There's only so
well,
many.
unless you're
And this
like.
is the thing, like
to be
everybody
cool.
needs to realize that we haven't really invented anything in the last 60 years, and we're just polishing turds in different
Turds, yeah.
colors, trying to all market it.
But
to
also
people.
now you've got access to it all. Do you know what I mean? You've got all access to the polished turds on every app you
Yeah.
possibly want.
But again, like, how did we come to that? Well, how did I come to that conclusion? Was when I was bodybuilding and I hired, 10 of the best coaches over the 8-year span of my competing years. Hired coaches for preps and stuff like that, and then when you lay all the programs out, it's all the same thing.
Yeah, but
It's all the
this is
same
this is
calories.
exactly
It's
what I
all
get.
the same macros. I mean, the training would be different. Okay, Georgia, you're going to do 25 sets of leg extensions. And you're like, that's weird. And then the one person's going to be like, you're going to do, 42 sets of, lunges. and it's all everyone's got their own kind of confirmation bias in
No,
one
but
way
what
or
I'd
the
say
other.
is that
But
like
it's-
you're not like I see people. The only time I see people get obviously belittled on social media, like when you're just doing something really stupid. Do you know what I mean? But also I get very entertained at the moment on how many women have got their flaps out whilst exercising. Now forget the the flaps out is becoming a bit of an issue. The other day I saw a guy who's a really supposedly well-known fitness influencer. And I even saw a woman comment underneath saying, I love seeing your adductors. I know the muscles that are worked. I thought, that's not her adduct, that's her fucking flaps. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Well,
it was
her beef
literally like
curtains.
the way she had filmed it or the videographer had filmed it. I thought, like,
yeah,
I
but
know it's for, but like, I just thought that is so intense. Like, it's too intense. It's like a gynecologist
But I
appointment.
feel
with
my
like,
general rule of thumb is when that comes to the more that you've got your flaps out, the less you
yeah,
have
and then
to
they'll be
give
doing something like a sumo.
intellectually. And I know that's that can some people would say that's quite derogatory, but like the reality is like if you're just getting your fucking beef curtains out, you've got like generally it's not followed by like some nuanced take on how you help people. It's basically vanity for showing, look at me, I'm
Yeah, but then
so
again,
on
like
and
it
so
is one of
forth.
these things. They're always doing an exercise, and I come back to like if you're doing something stupid, like you're always going to get something.
Or
back in,
doing a
like-
bicep curl, but the whole camera is focused right on your arsehole.
Yeah, well, I mean, but again, like I have to say, like look, I think women like that in gyms are unbearable.
But
do you
it's
know
the
what I mean? I
same
would
for
myself,
men.
but
Like
men are fucking even worse.
with the guy who's consistent, who takes his shirt off in the middle of the gym, and you're like, "Excuse me, dude, have you not heard of hygiene?"
It's not even the man taking his shirt off. It's just how men just are fucking around everywhere that they shouldn't be. Do you know what I mean? That's literally.
My favorite is all the.
Do you know the other day? Okay, so no.
leche
We
dudes.
train together at the moment, and I don't know whether or not, like, I need to look like I'll strangle you. Do you know what I mean? That's all my goal is. Like, I want to look like I'm going to put you in a headlock and you're
wish
going to
you
be
did,
worried. Do you know
yeah.
what I mean? That's
Yes.
where my goal is. Mark's like,
Yeah, I
fuck
wish you'd
yeah.
do that to me.
Yeah, I wish you'd fucking choke me. Oh, we're back on the choking. Anyway, so anyway, I went over to this guy who had been on the leg, because we've got obviously a structured training program. So we follow it like fucking structured training program. We train together, but we superset exercise. One of us will do one, the other one will do the other. Do you know what I mean? Then we switch. So this guy had been on the leg press for like fucking ages, and our next round of exercises was utilising the leg press. So I thought, this guy's been sat here for like 25 minutes on his phone. Like, this is a bit of a fucking joke. Like, I'll go over because, like, bro to bro, he probably still wouldn't give it to you. Do you know what I mean?
No, of
So I
course
was like,
not.
hey, like, how many sets do you have left? Like, just out of interest, And he he said, quite a few. And I was like, okay, like, how many? So I could just roughly know, like, so I could just, like, maybe just have some information that I could get on with my, like, my time. You've been, like, I didn't say you've been here for 25 minutes, but you fucking have. And he said, probably about 12 sets of calves. I just thought, you're such a fucking bellend. You've just put 200
12
kilos.
sets of calves?
Yeah. No, but that was after 25 minutes of doing the same fucking thing.
was
So he
texting.
he was texting in between. But
But then you wonder why you walk around and you got legs that resemble like a bird. Do you know what I mean? Like, you look like a flamingo.
yeah, like, I know, don't.
But then you wonder why, and you sit there and you just think, and you're
They're
like,
all walking on
yo,
their tippy toes.
my genetics are bad, or this is the problem.
Oh, should I be
or
training for my
blah blah
endomorphic?
blah.
Like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah,
fuck's
yeah.
sake.
My macro splitters, like, no, it's because you take 25
Do you
minutes
know what
in
pissed
between
him off the
sets.
most? Was I was like, cool, no worries. I've got no issue just watching you put like 200 kilos doing a calf raise. You can't even straighten your legs, but whatever. Anyways, because there's another seated like leg press, slightly different, do you know what I mean? That we were like, no worries, like we can just fucking switch over. Let's not make a problem of that. Just going to ask you, see if you'd be polite. You're not, classic. And then we go, and he got really shitty, the fact that somebody actually knew that, oh, sorry, you can't just take the leg press, because they actually knew what they needed to do in case they didn't have the leg press. But I do just think that kind of attitude, just like, yeah, I mean, as I said, women with their flaps out, men just fucking with an ego that they don't need for such a average life. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not something.
It's just very weird, yeah.
It is a bit weird, people, but no, obviously I come back to the exercise, like what we were actually talking about, but I actually want to move on to like range of motion, because
It's a huge.
talking
huge,
of the calves,
huge,
do you know what I mean? When I
huge-
say like you can't even straighten your legs, like
Yeah.
defeats the purpose of doing calf raise if you're literally on. Yeah, you're not.
The thing is, like, we don't necessarily want to sound defeatist in a way, but it's like if you're not doing things properly, then the chances of you leaving, like I was saying to one of our clients who had just come on board with us, who won the 12-week body transformation competition that we ran on social media. And he submitted a whole bunch of videos, and even though he is incredibly strong, impressively strong, the vast majority of the reps are, if you were like in a lifting competition and you had to grade them, it's a fail. So, and I'm not trying to mean that in a mean way, but it's just
learn.
We're trying to quantify it. Okay, pass or fail, fail. Okay, you've done 10. You've supposedly done 10 reps, but essentially you've done 0. So the reality is, I know it's when you try and quantify it like that, it can be a bit daunting. But then the reality is just imagine how much progress you're going to be making when you actually fundamentally go through a full range of motion and utilize the joints in their full capacity and so on and so forth. Just imagine how much progress you're going to see, and that is one of the largest discrepancies we see when we start training people online, virtually, or face to face. It's like just because you're doing a squat doesn't necessarily mean you're doing it properly, and that goes for any time of exercise. And I think range of motion is one of those things that is definitely the largest contributor to progress that a lot of people are missing out on.
Absolutely. And I think also I would we talk in a manner which is to those that come to us and expect a result. There's going to be some expectation there. You would have either seen the fact that we could produce results with other clients, or how other clients train, or a lot of times people, when they get in contact with us, they're like, I love seeing your clients do, I love seeing what you do, I love following everything you do, blah, blah, blah. So you're coming for a result, and if you then go in with zero purpose or will or want behind getting that result, what do you think the result's going to be? It's going to be bare minimum to what you expect. And so when we come to range of motion, it's one of those. You want to come and completely adapt your physique, okay? So you want to build lean muscle tissue, you want to look in shape, you want to look stronger, fitter, healthier, but yet you're doing a quarter lunge, okay? Where does that going to get you? Exactly the same as, I say this a lot to our clients, specifically, obviously, normally is online, because the virtual and in person, it's obviously us speaking, so we set it relative to the client. But, I always say, when I see video, I'm like, right, you need to take off half of that weight. I'm like, take off half the fucking weight, drop the ego, do you know what I mean? And realise that I would rather, and as a professional, qualified, fucking certified coach, do you know what I mean? It is it's like stabbing forks in my eyes when I watch people do half reps. I might as well take the fork and I might as well twizzle it fucking around a few times and then detach it completely. It honestly is probably my biggest pet peeve, is watching people exercise with additional weight, heavy amount of weight, doing it like a quarter rep, and they're like, yeah, I've done 15. Men, for example, in the last gym that we trained in, I'd be doing 8 reps, do you know what I mean, nice and controlled, and in that same time a man's picked up double the threatened, obviously, and done 65 reps, just but it's not reps. I mean, you can't call it a rep when it's literally a quarter rep. And so when you Mark's like, oh, a pass and a fail. Yeah, it sounds really brutal, but what do you expect from it? You're coming to learn. Do you know what I mean? You're not coming to be, unfortunately, if you have a personal trainer, I would say there's a happy medium between being spoon-fed and having to do it yourself. I've always said this. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot of people that they're not as self-sufficient, do you know what I mean, or they've got the additional income, they don't want to think about it, and that is when you're really but if you're online, you've got nobody watching over you unless you're videoing yourselves to send it to us, do you know what I mean? So when you come to learn, you're coming to learn, do you know what I mean, so that you have the confidence to go into the gym and do it and not fret and feel like you can make progress. So you need to do it properly. If you're not going to do something properly, why are you
But the
doing
thing
it
is,
at all?
but it's also like you have to do it properly because you want to see
You
the
open
most
yourself up
amount
to
of progress.
so many injuries when
But
you don't train properly
like
as
if
well.
you do a quarter rep on the squat, your hips don't articulate. You don't, for example, put certain muscle groups through eccentric loading where the vast majority of muscle hypertrophy occurs. So a lot of people think that when the signaling for muscle to grow comes on the lifting portion of the exercises, but it's not. It's
No,
the
yes.
eccentric. It's the lowering under resistance that causes the hypertrophic signaling and signals muscle protein synthesis. So if you're doing a quarter of the rep and you're doing a quarter of the eccentric portion, then what about the other 2/3?
And also,
So then it
think
comes
of the
down to like
speed as well.
and again, it's not to sound defeated,
I wouldn't carry on apologising about it.
but again, it's like, oh, like, what are you actually doing? Nothing. And like you're essentially just accumulating junk volume when you're not going through a full range of motion, which is going to accumulate with muscle dysfunctions or a breakdown in your biomechanical gait cycle, so on and so forth. But like, you're going into the gym under the assumption that you're doing something really positive and you're doing something really beneficial, but then it comes down to like you're not really doing anything.
Well, but yes, I think you're in the sense of like what you're trying. If you're going in there to achieve, I am going to lift weights and I need to do it in a structured manner, and you're going in and doing quarter reps, you're not doing anything. But you might see. But again, I also then come down to that effect it has on the tempo that you train. If you're doing a quarter rep, you're going to come up much quicker. Do you know what I mean? So like if you did a quarter squat back up, you're going to be training quite fast compared to if you went the full range back up. I say this all the time. One of the biggest comments I always get is just like, my range on exercises, also the speed. Like when people are just amazed at how much, like, how could you have so much control over it? Because I built it. I literally have worked on trying to make sure, because my goal is obviously to grow muscle, but also to get strong, really, really strong. I've got to put myself through the most challenging parts of those movements for the longest duration of time to get me comfortable, obviously relative, So if I'm doing an RDL at the speed of fucking lightning, do you think that when I come to then lift, so pick up the bar, done 8 to 10 reps, speed of fucking lightning, put the bar down, do you think that my grip strength's going to get better? Do you think that I'm ever going to be able to progress the weights because my speed is what's affecting me? I haven't got comfortable holding that amount of weight. I haven't got comfortable loading that amount of weight. So then it comes to the point of when it is pointless. Do you know what I mean? So I always say to people, like, no point. The same as like top of a pull-up, straighten your fucking arms. Like, go and try, because it's really hard. And then you'll be like, oh, it's really hard. And then you'll be like, oh, why is it so hard? Because you need to strengthen all the surrounding muscle groups. If you don't, like, it's like one of those things, how do you straighten your arms? Like push-ups. You've got men walking around with T-Rex arms, also women, do you know what I mean? T-Rex arms, because you don't ever straighten your arms. When was the last time your elbow even fucking knocked out? Probably in 1960. Like, the point is the fact that then imagine you've got T-Rex arms, joint muscular dysfunction because you've not been training very well, or you've never put the range of motion required through those joints that's needed. Then you're going to go and do a bicep curl. Okay, you can't even straighten your arms. So where do you think that's being pulled into exactly? Then you wonder why your shoulders internally rotated, and you'll never be able to grow your arms because you'll never be able to straighten them. You can't work the full range, So I come back to the point, it's a cycle of life that clearly I'm so passionate about. But I always say to people, if you want to get stronger, understand you actually need to get there. And by getting there, it means you need to put the fucking stepping stone work in to achieve what you're so desirably wanting to achieve. Yeah. And again, speed you train is fucking everything. Literally everything. No, I'm not saying you need to look like...
But too slow is also counterproductive, because then I have seen certain individuals that train at such a slow tempo that it steals away from their maximum potential to then improve their cumulative volume or their cumulative load lifted, because the eccentrics are so slow. You are you're essentially seeping energy and you're becoming less efficient
Okay.
in those lifts.
I get that, but it depends what the purpose of the lift is. Like,
Yeah.
for example, if you were to do like a bench press and you were to take the eccentric a little bit slower, the whole point with that would be to get used to loading a bar with stability in a wrist path that was actually going to be relatively stable. You see, if you then bend, you're never going to get in a position where you can then load with control.
Yeah,
so
but
I
again,
agree
I
and
don't-
I
I
disagree.
don't
Because I don't
necessarily-
see the point of necessarily upping
No, I
fucking
don't-
weight on
what
either
I'm trying
side for
to-
the sake of just volume.
What I'm trying to say is not black and white, but I'm saying if you're going at a tempo that is like 8 seconds on an eccentric, the chances of you diminishing your potential to then progressively overload the totals.
I have to say, I know in the sense of like, again, coming back to our little communities in each industry, I can very much appreciate who and where those people that would be training very, very fucking slowly would be. But I do think that is not for the general population. When I see it, it's a good day, but I really rarely see people train with a good enough tempo. Like, I really, really, like, never see it.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying it is.
So, like,
few and far
actually, guys,
between, but
slow the
it's-
fuck down. Do you know what I mean? I always say to Mark, where are they going? Do you know what I mean? Where are they going? Are they off somewhere? Do you know what I mean? Because the speed you go at, do you know what I mean, is really going to also, if you want to grow muscle, do you know what I mean? Like, you know, again, like, if you don't ever have your time in that position, you know what I mean? The positions that you should be in relative to, you're never going to grow the adequate muscle. You're not putting the right amount of tension. You're not stimulating it and, like, you know, enough to grow lean muscle tissue. So, you know, come down to doing like a hamstring curl. You do a hamstring curl lying, just like flying your legs in. You know, where have you actually stimulate, you know what I mean, to grow muscle? You're not. Do you know what I mean? You're just moving frantically.
Yeah.
You might as well then go and do plyometrics, like, honestly. But I do think it sounds like it's like, but I think it's one of these things where when you get that structure, you realise, like, we're not in a rush to do fucking anything here.
No.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm actually going to think about what I'm doing. I'm going to do it with purpose,
Be
and I can
present.
assure you the results will be 10 times better than what you ever imagined. And I put
More
it down.
time efficient, more efficient
Absolutely
in
time
every,
efficient.
you know, you're not going in there, you're not spending hours, you're getting in there, you're doing exactly what you need to be done. You're pushing yourself to a comfortable position where you know your body can adapt, but you know that you can recover from it. And it is just makes the entire process that much more enjoyable compared to, you know, really high intensity movements or exercises, super fatiguing, very daunting, unquantifiable. You know, these are the kind of things that most people generally take on board when it comes to exercise, and then wonder why they find it very difficult to stay consistent or find value in being able to consistently train, you know, 52 weeks of a year, essentially, give or take your rest days, but most of the time spent exercising, because either it's too intense, the exercise selection is wrong.
Can I just stop you there? Because I agree, like, the too intense of, like, doing too much, but I also want to talk on the fact of, I also think that there are times where, like, you want to enjoy things, wonderful. But sometimes in life, and most of the time, and every time in life, when we want to be better at something, we do need to take ourselves out of that comfort zone.
Of course.
And so when you say you want to enjoy it and be, you know, comfortable in what you're doing, because then you're going to do it 10 times more, do you know what I mean? Obviously, that absolutely makes sense in the consistency element of it. But in my eyes, I would say that you still, when you get to the point where you're enjoying it and it's comfortable, if you are still expecting to see a physical result, then you need to be then looking at your intensity and saying, I need to increase this intensity, because, or you need to adapt something in the sense of your training program. But it is one of these things where I almost feel like I don't. There are parts of there are people, as again in groups, some that enjoy exercising, some that absolutely hate exercising. And, you know, I always speak, and what we speak about really is probably directed at those that really like exercising, because it's only really relative to you. But I do think that, like, exercise has been one of these things where, like, because for some very strange reason, the same with nutrition, like this human biology that literally will see your health through until the day you fucking die has never really been highlighted as something like, it's like we're almost forced to do it. And I think that element has a bit of a problem with the fact that everything needs to then be comfortable. Do you know what I mean? Oh, it's fine, but you are exercising, you know, you're on the recline, you know, you're on the bike for 30 minutes. Do you know what I mean? I just think, okay, not everybody is going to be, you know, lifting to relative RP all the fuck. I'm not saying that that's completely ridiculous, but I am saying is the fact that, like, at what point was everything meant to be wrapped up in cotton wool? I'm not sure, because
we had to all be inclusive to every single person so that everyone feels comfortable.
No, we don't. Absolutely cannot please everybody in this world. I've learned that very quickly.
Everybody, you know, everyone's at a different level, everyone's at different stages in their lives.
But we talk from a strength and conditioning like element where we help people grow lean muscle tissue to can literally transform their physiques, transform their lifestyles, transform their nutrition, like every single day of our life for the past many years. Do you know what I mean? And so I come to the point of maybe like where I speak at right now, I can't be inclusive of those that don't get it because it's too hard. It's not something that you would have experienced.
Yeah, of course.
Is it something that you should experience if you're looking at your physique? Do you know what I mean? And you're going, do you know what I mean? Like that. You know, I come to the point of like additional resistance as well. So when we went to South Africa, we obviously had like our own gym that we'd built, and it had obviously huge amounts of equipment in it, but for us, for example, it wasn't enough external resistance for a lot of it, which meant a lot of our training plateaued, and so did our physiques for a long period of time. And I'll be brutally honest about that, like
because the goals that we were trying to achieve were more muscle hypertrophy, and the resistance that we had to use was more predominantly bar work. So the availability of stability, which is lacking in bar work generally compared to machines or fixed range of motion apparatuses, then has a vastly different physique outcome on your physique. Hence the reason why, although CrossFit athletes have got very impressive physiques, when it comes to muscle mass, they're not exactly the most muscular individuals.
Not. You might think that like that's absolutely bizarre. We say that, but in genuine terms, in the sense of the men slightly different, but the women are savage. Do not get me fucking wrong. They have got relative.
Amazing. But take them into put one of them into an IFBB show, and they'll come stone last.
So yeah, so if we're talking physique, like we obviously want to. Always we're striving on a physique level and also a strength level. And actually, let's quickly talk about, I think we mentioned this briefly in exercise selection podcast that we did, but why is it important that if you are looking to grow muscle, that stability is a factor in what you do in training?
Because with stability comes mechanical tension, which is a prerequisite to muscle hypertrophy. So the mechanical tension comes from, again, the hyper-focused eccentric lengthening and concentric shortening of the muscle based around the pivots of, let's say, for example, if you're doing a seated row or a one-arm row, your lat is anchoring around your spine, your thoracic spine, your lumbar spine, and then you're eccentrically loading the target muscle group in an isolated manner, whilst the rest of the body remains completely and utterly static. And that, when they've done hypertrophy studies, has been shown to elicit the most amount of muscle growth response. So when it comes to like ballistic movements or movements that are like an Olympic lift, like a clean and a snatch, again, very impressive modalities when it comes to mobility and plyometric strength and so on and so forth. But because the stimulus is essentially not all over the place, but spread out in such an explosive manner, the eccentric hypertrophic response is far less than your traditional, static, stable Smith machine. I don't know, for whatever
Well, like if
muscle
you looked
group
at something
you're
like
trying
if
to
you
create.
looked at a one-arm row versus a seated row machine, like naturally speaking, depending on the row machine, like there obviously we've got different ones at our gyms, but not naturally speaking, you're going to have your torso the same as why. Actually, let's this is one of the best comparisons: a prone row versus a bent over row.
Yeah, that's a very good
So a prone
comparison.
row obviously is something that you lie face forward on a bench, do you know what I mean? Chest is supported, you allow your arms to fully extend, obviously stretching through, and then obviously squeeze shoulder blades together, row up. Now that's going to put you in a position where your torso is stable, so you can only really think about the movement, the row, okay? So the retraction of shoulder blades, squeezing lats away, you know what I mean? When you look at something like a bent over row, which is like number one hated exercise, it's there's so much going on.
Yeah,
Okay, so
there
you've got to
is.
think right. You've got to have a good, decent hip hinge. So you've got to be able to hip hinge.
Correct.
You've got to be able to have your torso forward over weight displays, distributed in your heels. Do you know what I mean? You then got to hold the barbell in naturally either normally an overhand grip, which is a very weak positioning for most and probably is not the positioning you should be, or you go underhand grip, but so and so forth. You end up where if you can't hinge your hips back, you're going to be rounding forward.
Yeah.
It's too much going on. You've got to
You're
think of the hip
yanking the
hinge. You're
bar.
anchoring the bar.
Yeah.
The bar's then bringing towards you. But naturally, if you bring weight to you and you're bent over, what do you think is going to happen? You can't distribute your weight in your heels. You're naturally going to rock forward, and then it's not working your back.
Yeah.
It's fucking up your back. There's a difference.
Generally, as coaches, when we watch or coach clients, the first initial reaction for the person is to utilize momentum in that exercise to then complete the reps. So you say, all right, we're going to aim for 10 reps. Let's say they get to about rep 6 and the form starts to break down. Most people are then going to start to utilize momentum to then utilize the kinetic energy from the momentum to then to transfer it into the lengthening and the contraction of the muscle group. And when that starts to happen, that's when you start to then get less benefit from the exercise itself, from the reps itself. The junk volume starts to accumulate, and that's when you have to then make sure that the right weight is then utilized, form is then utilized, and consistently the coaching cues of being able to minimize momentum to then increase stability is where you start to get the vast majority out of the exercises.
The most people that I would speak to, that like a new client or a beginner client, or all the clients that have ever started, do you know what I mean, that have been like beginners with ours, is they always say, like, I feel like, like a baby cow, do you know what I mean, like a calf, like trembling around, my knees are all over the place, that, because it's trying to seek that stability. So, stability is so beneficial for all levels of, physique advancement, so you've got the bodybuilders who we have to be able to, in that level, be able to lift as much weight, put as much weight resistance through, so that obviously means stability. You're not going to be lifting your most amount of weight on a bent over row when you're thinking about, you're going to be limited with the amount of weight you can actually row. You see, then go and put yourself in a stable position, maximum amount of you're able to row.
But,
So I think like everyone is seeking stability in training in some way or another. Whether you do a Bulgarian split squat and you think you're going to fall over, you need, whether you're doing a step up and you feel, like a newborn, like it's
because again, when it comes to joint stability, a stable joint is a strong joint.
Yeah.
So when you're doing the certain movements and you're struggling to find stability, that's because somewhere in your kinetic chain there is a weak muscle or some
Usually
form of muscle dysfunction, usually in the hip. So let's say, for example,
a step up for hip extension is a very good
exactly, or for example, you're doing a single leg squat and you're slowly lowering your hips down towards the bench and your knee caves in and you experience knee valgus because the integrity of the hip, especially the glute medius, is not facilitating its main role in hip function. So
say, for example, you've got flat feet, okay, so naturally you're going to be a more internally rotated knee. Naturally, you're going to have a weaker glute medius, on the on the side of the glute, which means naturally when you stand up, a lot of people, your posture doesn't sit in a position where you've ever extended your hip. So a lot of time you'll see when people sit into that anterior pelvic tilt, you've had no stability placed through your hip joint at all.
Correct.
You're relying on let's just say not the best areas of your body to literally hold you up. So that's why it's so important. You're never not going to be in an anterior pelvic tilt. You can't just break all your fucking pelvis and hope it's going to be. Nobody's in a completely neutral pelvis positioning. But you can.
Yeah, you've got to be less than 15 degrees.
But you can obviously bring yourself as close as you can back to center, and that's what's so important because, the amount of times that we have clients who start with us, you know what I mean? As Mark said, when you're doing those lower body exercises, it happens a lot with lower body, where you're lowering down, you don't know where your stability is coming from. As I said, you've never placed weight through there before. Yeah. That's why even standing on one leg is such a challenge for so many people.
Standing on one leg, bringing your knee to your chest will
one of the hardest movements.
Will throw people off their balance because most people's hips have an inability to function independently of one another.
That's again coming back down to exercise selection, why unilateral work done properly obviously is so important. I literally put our methodology, unilateral, our clients know this, do you know what I mean? But unilateral work is the literal foundation and pillar of your whole training. If you are not lifting single sides on things or practicing single leg stability in some exercises or you're not in a full.
There's no questions about it. You have to utilize unilateral movements to keep you as symmetrical as possible.
And you know what a lot of people say, unilateral is so much harder. It's because there's two sides, obviously. You've got to do more volume, in the sense of it is more fatiguing. But how many people I say, again, I come back to the stepping stones, want to be able to do a pull-up, do you know what I mean? But not just one pull-up. I sound like one of those adverts. Want to be able to do a pull-up, not just one pull-up. Then all of these stepping stones are getting you there, but you've got to actually do them and get relatively strong in them in order for you to, and there's so much, if we look at a pull-up, there's so much to a pull-up in the sense of body weight, height, limb length,
scapular mobility, there's just literally...
you always see why can a short person, a really petite person pull themselves up? Well, one, their body weight's obviously tends to be lower. Two, their height, they've got
their arms are...
When you're 5'8" like me, do you know what I mean? I said this to a client the other day who was is really trying to get, a lot of our clients, female clients, want to get really strong at pull-ups, and she was like, God, I'm getting better, do you know what I mean, with the assisted ones. But she was like, it's so hard. And I said, look, I'll be fucking honest with you. I remember the days where I could never do a pull-up. But I had to get so physically strong. I was saying this the other day, for me to be able to do it for reps, more than a lot of people would have to. Because I'm not a petite individual. Now, I would say, what would you describe me as, Mark? I can't really describe myself.
Sexy.
No, Mark, in the sense of actual physical thing,
boner material.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry. That's very childish.
Yeah, it's childish.
You just look very physically capable.
Physically capable.
If anything, you would probably be a sprinter,
I actually sometimes think that people think when they're
sprinter.
I've got the quads to sprint. I would definitely, and I've also got the lower body to have the power.
Yeah, I would say 100
not
meters,
long distance running.
100 meters or 200 meters or something like that.
Maybe I should start running. No, not running, sprinting. But yeah, I mean, look, it took so long. I had to think about it. If your body weight, you've got to get relatively strong on either side, because I remember the day where I was like, back in the day in London, I remember this because I didn't have much time to really put towards my own training because I was so busy training other people that I just didn't have the time and energy behind it. And I remember just being like, I should really be able to do a fucking pull-up, for Christ's sake, you're a strength coach. And I just couldn't. Do you know what I mean? And I remember being like, I'm not going to get demoralised about trying to do one pull-up when I could get really fucking great at all the rest of the exercises. And then one day,
Yeah.
I'll just be able to pull up. And that's literally how it happened.
But that's the story and the journey of pull-ups for most people. It's like,
but some people just try and try the same movement, and they struggle to get them for reps.
Yeah.
But
And again, if you're not going
movement,
through the movements of like strengthening your lats with pull downs, one arm rows, and working subsequent biceps, triceps, shoulders, core, and you're not having the goal, and your attempt of trying to do an exercise or a pull up is just after your session just jumping up and trying, and you're like, oh my god, I've just tried for 6 months and I can't do it.
Yeah, like it's not ready to do. Fatigued, point one.
Then
like
you know what I mean? You need
you
to manage your expectations. Like like George was saying, the amount of graft that she put into, starting from doing a single arm row with X amount, working away all the way up to 42.5, 45 kilos. Like, that's taken you years to do that. And over the months of banded, assisted pull-ups, eccentric pull-ups, working your biceps, doing this, and this, I watched you go from the band, all the different color bands, and getting progressively overloading all the accessory muscle groups and stuff like that, to now where you're literally doing, like on a bad day, you do sets of 8, which is ridiculous.
I know, I love that on a bad day. Like speaking down to me like it's a bad day, or if I'm
I'm just saying, like on a bad day you do 8. Most people can't. I don't know any woman. I've never seen a woman do sets of 10 pull-ups with my eyes.
I've seen a couple, but I think it's relative, depends on the hand placement, and also like there's always arguments for and against. I'm not really in a competition with anybody else other than myself. I always think that's pathetic if I can't do more. But but I think it's also a will and a want. Do you know what I mean? And I look, and don't get me wrong, when I speak on this podcast, I'm sat here as a professional. Do you know what I mean? In the sense of like it's my job to, again, I come down to the point. Not many jobs
a lot of people
completely associate yourself with the modern
but when it comes to this topic of like training and lifting and looking a certain way, but a lot of people want a lot of things verbally, but when it comes down to like, okay, you want X, Y, and Z, or this is how you're going to action it, and these are the sacrifices you're going to need to make, and so on and so forth, then the actual want is not as... Do you know what I mean? We're having this discussion where it was like,
they speak down at people
so
a lot.
So and so wants to change their body composition so much because they get super motivated. It's just like, well, if so and so was so motivated to look a certain way, then why haven't they addressed their nutrition like we've told them to do for the last 6 months?
Well, no,
I think it's... and the desire and everything, again, everybody wants in this day and age, but when it comes down to like, okay, well, what are you going to do to get it?
But I also feel like when you're at the top, like of the top of like people will always directly compare themselves to you. I've had this a lot actually, as like I've probably progressed. Like people always directly like, it's not necessarily like a friendly thing either. It's a direct comparison where you've got somebody who's like a. Do you know what's hard is because a lot our market falls in not like as much as we work with athletes, like we're not talking at a market right now of those that are like the 1% of like so we're talking to you like where you are general population, you like going to the gym, and so we're going to be talking about it from a fitness, health, strength, vanity point of view in an almost way. But I do think that like a lot of the time people do look at other people, even most of the time you look at the 1%, oh yeah, they look ridiculous. Do you know what I mean? Because you're never going to fucking get that. You'll talk down at people just so that you feel like you're slightly better, like, you know what I mean, better about yourself. And again, it comes down to how many times you admire people's physiques through like either a video or a photo and then think, oh, I've got this, but you just have no context to their life. Like, I have to understand, that I don't really disclose much of our life at all, really. I associate with work and what I do. Like, as I always say, it's very rare to be in a career, do you know what I mean, where your job and your life is directly associated with itself. Like, it's like the whole thing of like, I need to look a certain way in order to fit into a category of people like that. So...
For sure.
it's one of these things where, you know, I speak about and I'm thinking, well, I want to look a certain way, I want to achieve this, blah blah, but is it actually realistic to like so many people? Absolutely not. Like,
imagine if other professions were like that. You're like, you don't look like a lawyer, so we're not going to listen to you.
Yeah, but how many people, when people are turned up with like face tattoos and like fully tatted, and they've got an amazing business idea, and people are like, you look like a prison convict. Do you know what I mean? Like, so genuinely. Yeah. Like, and it's just shit because it completely judges upon the character. But it's again, I will fail to agree with anybody who says different to this, unless you are being encouraged to be of a larger size, do you know what I mean? And you're in that market, you are not buying from somebody in our industry that's not in shape. Because you buy what somebody looks like, not what they fucking know. And you deep down know that as well. You deep down fucking know that you are only buying something because you're like, she looks fucking good, or he looks good in that, or I like that. Oh, she looked nice in that sports bra, I'll buy that. And you look like fucking opposite, and then you get really depressed. You know how many people are like, oh, you know, oh, I saw so-and-so on Instagram. It'll be like a fucking bodybuilder. It'll be like a WBFF world bikini title. I do think it's a bit masculine. You know what I mean? And you're like, do you even have a fucking clue how hard it is to get to that position? Like, you know, it's always like throwing that shade, but you're directly comparing yourself to literally the 1% of the world. It's like going, oh, do you know what, actually? That one transaction I made has put me in the same level as fucking like JP Morgan. Yeah, you know what I mean? In fact, actually, I reckon I could be the next Amazon, do you know what I mean? Because you've just sold one thing, do you know what I mean, on Vinted. Like, it's genuinely that thing. It's that direct comparison. Why are you doing it with the top percent? And even those that are not the top percent in the sense of athletic physique, sporting physiques, those that are of the influence as well, do you know what I mean? Like, I really want to tell you this deep down, because me and Mark have had the absolute wonders of working with a lot of these people. They don't look anything like they do in photos. And I don't want to, that's not, I never say names, do you know what I mean? But I'm not sure, but it is one of those things, it's completely false perception.
I feel like that's why I'm not necessarily bitter or pessimistic, but having interacted with alternate versions of reality. You know, when you're especially in the London circles training this, you know, the celebrities and the socialites and all these people that are known for looking a certain way, and then when you get to the session and you rock up and you're like,
I remember seeing a very well-known supermodel
catfishing on a grand scale.
Like, I remember like a very, 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 very well-known supermodel being in there and just literally being like, I literally couldn't even recognise it. Like, and I genuinely mean that. Like, supermodels are wonderful. You actually know how to work a camera, but it is, and that's like, I'm not saying people could admire to a supermodel now, but in the London scene they do, because the skinnier the fucking better. Like, literally, like, do I look paper thin? I'm not sure. Please make me paper thin. Like, you know, as one of our clients said the other day, do you know what I mean? It's just crazy. Like, she went to a dinner party with like 20 women for women, you know what I mean, empowerment,
Chelsea
and
women.
it was just like, it was just a bunch of women pushing salad around their plate, do you know what I mean, like snorting lines of cocaine in the toilet. So it's not exactly with kids. Do you know what I mean? Like, fuck, like what, like they've got kids, it's just bizarre, like, you know. But I saying, like, the fact that, you know, when you look at a physique, whether it's a fucking model or an influencer or a sporting athletic, like, just remember you're actually nothing like them. Do you know what I mean? This is why I'm very conscious of only talking about practical senses of our job, because the reality is that I like to talk about personal experience because we've got enough of it, do you know what I mean, in the sense of our own personal experience with our work and also ourselves. But there is a fine line between when we say certain things to what it actually means to somebody else, do you know what I mean? And also just not falling into the trap of just thinking like, oh, because that's our relative goal, that it also should be yours, because that's just factually incorrect. And I do think with like exercise and like what you look like physique wise, it's so easy. Like you 100% have an idea of what somebody else looks like on your body, do you know what I mean? You're not looking at yourself going, oh, I know that I could really carve out a great physique here. You're looking at somebody else's carved out physique and then like sticking it onto your body and going, I think that would look nice. Do you know what I mean? It's like, well, what did that person do to get there? And so, yeah, I mean, look, I have to say, I would 100% hands down say that the top physiques in our industry, the top physiques that compete,
Yes.
hand on my heart, I don't know one
compete.
of those females that has not had an eating disorder. So just to put that into context, it's not always just like fucking I look amazing, tanned and like lean and oh my god, my arse is great, I've got no cellulite, I look better than you. Like there is a huge amount of mental work that's like that's
Like,
going
I'm
on.
scared of food.
I'm scared of food. I don't eat anything. I just need to compete to show people that it's okay. Do you know what I mean? To be
Oh,
this
I've
obsessed.
just had 300 more calories than I should. I need to go and do shit.
I'm doing
loads of
cardio.
exercise.
But you know, it's just like I think it's so important that like people just, it's hard not to compare. I think this is the time of the year where like people think that you meant to have like kicked off the year with such a
comparison is shoved down our throats every single day when you go online or you go, anywhere really. Where it used to be keeping up with the Joneses next door, making sure that. And now you see it rammed down your throat when you go online, whether it's advertising, whether it's social media.
You honestly wonder why we're in like a mental health like.
And you just
pandemic.
and the thing is you always see such an altered version of reality to the point where, and because we always see behind the curtain with clients and people that we've worked with, you see somebody go on holiday and behind the scenes they're having the shittest time. They're fighting with their spouses.
And you'll be on like a call with them.
The cars, the engine's fallen out the bonnet. They've just been stung by a group of wasps, but all you see on social media is like just the best things, and you just think, fuck, that person's really having a good time. I wish I could.
The other
be doing
day,
that.
I was with a client.
Do you know what I mean?
And she was showing me photos of like the weekend or whatever, and I said, "Oh God, that's such a cute photo of all of you." Yeah, it was absolutely a raging argument. To be honest with you, it was a forced photo.
That's
what I mean? It's the one that goes up on Instagram. Do you know what I mean? Like, the one that gets sent.
Dill put up a whole bunch of really nice photos of his weekend away, and I was speaking to your mum in the session. She, Dylan looks like he had a wonderful time. Well, not really.
Yeah, actually, Dylan's car like exploded on the way there. Literally.
Him and his missus had a massive argument to the point where they didn't speak to each other for like a week, and so no, not really.
I always said this, and if you've been a long-term listener of our podcast, I think I said on like one of our first ever episodes, I said like if there's not a podcast out, it's normally because me and Mark are in a raging argument.
Yeah, probably.
Or it's around my period, and usually it is that because like it's normally around my period that you won't have. You won't have a podcast because I genuinely can't breathe around anybody without just fucking raging. So it's just best not entertain people with that. We'll end up in an argument. But I do think it's just such a fault. You're right. Like everything is a bit of a false sense of reality, and we're shoved down it all day, every day. We have gone through the loops on every sense, from business to personal to fact. Everybody does it. Everybody's in competition with each other in some weird way or another. And so it's just best focus, as I always say, on like, always speak, again, like I said to you to do in the gym, do you know what I mean? You should always talk back to yourself, not fucking, don't be like me, like I talk to myself all day, but, you should always say to yourself, was that hard enough? Did I train? Asking yourself questions so you're more self-aware, like, of what you're doing. That's exactly the same in every sense, really. Just speaking back to yourself and being like, do you think that's actually realistic? It really does help you rather than just going with your gut. Do you know what I mean? Oh, that looks good, flying off, doing something and then regretting it.
For sure.
But again, just remember that when we talk about all of this stuff, it is relative to goals and goals that are probably more physique orientated.
Do you think towards the end of your career that you'll write
Jesus Christ, the end of my career? I don't feel like that's ever going to happen.
No, it won't. Hopefully I'll die. Hopefully I'll die brain aneurysm or like a heart attack whilst I'm in the gym.
Do you know what? That's fucking awful because we know our neighbour lost their husband to on holiday, just literally suddenly of a heart. No, don't do that. Sudden is the worst. I'd rather you were long.
No, when I'm like 90 odd.
Oh, so you actually think you're going to last that long?
Yeah, hopefully.
Well, actually, you've got quite good. Well,
my dad had cancer, but that was like he treated that like he had like a sore throat.
Sore throat, yeah, exactly. It's the African mentality. Just get on with it.
He was just like, dude, you got cancer, and he was like, yeah, so.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of bizarre. You're like, oh my
You're
God,
like, how's that all
everyone's crying.
going?
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Everyone's
fine.
literally crying. You're like,
Yeah, it's just
but
so
how's
deep.
Dad? Everyone okay? Do you know what I mean? And he's just there
Yeah.
sailing through.
Yeah,
But again,
he's
people
chilled.
deal with things differently. It depends on what you've been through.
Yeah.
It's also the reality that you live in. Do you know what I mean? As to how you
Mm.
deal with things. But yeah, I mean, I do think that 90. I think fine at 90. I'll be a bit younger.
Yeah.
Still fresh to go on the new relationship.
Oh my God.
What? Like, if you won't be able to get an erection at 90.
Watch me. Fucking watch me.
Watch me, I'm going to be fucking erect when I'm dead. You will be,
Yeah,
though,
just
because that's
be-
what happens.
What, all the blood just goes to my
Doesn't it happen when somebody dies? With,
Open
not a
casket.
woman. Open casket, raging erection,
Yeah.
then you're going to have, like,
going out the way, just
I'll
the way
get a
you
willy
want it.
piercing for you. Like, so then you can have, like,
Prince Albert.
Oh my God, that's what it's called, a Prince Albert. It's not
Yeah.
Prince Andrew. It's a Prince Andrew. No, a Prince Albert. Oh my God. I remember watching Embarrassing Bodies. There's something went wrong with that. Sorry, if you've got
No,
Prince Albert, I'm
that
sorry,
is-
I'm judging you.
There was a guy.
That and a nipple piercing. Christ, how do you do that?
There was a guy called Adam Weston at school that
Don't say
gave
people's full names.
himself
People might
a
Google.
foreskin piercing in the back of the maths class with
What, with a compass?
Yeah.
Yeah, the fucking compass. I used to think I was
Yeah.
well cool tattooing Biro into my hand with a
They had
compass.
like the compass in his dick.
Oh my God, did anyone else used to get pins and stick them through their skin like
Oh,
it was
loads
leather?
of dudes.
Yeah.
Loads of dudes.
Yeah, I mean, that's not okay.
Loads
But
of
like, you
dudes.
used to like, it's a bit bizarre though, isn't it, that you always used to have your willy out? Do you know what I mean?
Very, very often.
Oh, that's just bizarre that all your
Yeah.
friends know, like, just the willies are out.
Dicks out. Yeah, but that was the thing.
Tell
like
me
if
if
you
no,
got
tell
weird,
everyone on the podcast
if you
about
got
that
weird
mum that
about-
used to.
Oh, Matt Linforth's mum.
Don't say the fucking name.
Well,
We've
that
got a
nobody
podcast.
listens to it. But
What-
Morale,
what-
I'll sell Morale Linforth.
No. Nobody of the people that you're talking about listen to it. It's just the
Well,
fact that
maybe
we
we
have a
go
large
viral.
audience that are listening to it. And you probably
Yeah,
should just
well,
say Matt's
No,
mum.
no, Morale Linforth. She knows. She was always her AKA one for the road.
Oh God, no! This is a mum of
She'd
one
like
of the
take
boys.
you home, pick you up, and then you'd stop off at everyone else's house for one for the road, and you only get home at fucking 4:00 in the
What, she
afternoon
was just
the next
drinking
day.
because she was alcohol.
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah,
she?
bad. It was anyway.
Quite a lot of alcoholics.
So on Matt's 18th birthday at like 6 in the morning, the parents had been drinking pretty much since the day before. People were still going strong. And Matt's mum comes out and she lines 15 dudes up and she's like, right, boys, get all of your cocks out. We're going to have a cock measuring competition.
No, that's just not okay for a mum to do that. What the fuck?
Hilarious.
Like, it's you know, you wonder, do you know what I mean, where all these sexual predators are coming from in
Get your
every
cock.
sense.
I want to see how big all your
how
cocks
how
are.
old were you?
We were 18.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dudes got their cocks out.
Of course they fucking did. They probably
Yeah.
wanted sucked off as well. Do you know what I
Daniel
mean?
Dessau took his pants off and then wiped his ass on the dance floor like a dog.
Oh my God. It's just like, it's gross. I just clearly was not brought up around like boys.
Yeah,
'Cause, like,
very masculine.
it's not masculine. That's a bit weird. That's like Saltburn vibes, to be quite
It
fucking
is,
honest
but it's
with
quite
you.
funny though.
You'd be drinking come out of the fucking plug hole at this rate.
I always found it like certain elements of colonial or boys' school stuff like that was always a bit
finger up the
homoerotic.
arsehole vibes, yeah.
Soggy biscuits and all
Well,
that.
it's like, why do you think all these men are catered for prison? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, like dudes jizzing on each other and stuff.
Like, where do
It's
you
like,
get that
ha,
from?
ha,
Do you know what I
ha,
mean?
it's
Like, you
like
could
that.
just have a wank and think of a woman maybe over it. Do you know what I mean? But instead, like in prison, they have to like shove like, oh God, like when you drop soap in the shower.
Well, the
or,
borders,
like-
were quite. I used to sell FHMs and GQ magazines to the borders.
No, you didn't, Mark.
I did.
I don't think you were that much of an entrepreneur at such a young age, were
I
you?
did.
Oh,
I was
so
when
you
I
really
was
love
grade-
you love wanking off to that Oh yeah, FHM. I just bought one at the corner shop.
No,
do you
I
know
used to
what I
buy
mean?
them at the.
I used to buy them in bulk.
I did actually.
Honestly, Mark, do you know what I mean?
did.
Is this Costco for porn? Do you know
No,
what
I
mean?
used to go to the flea market and I used to pick them up and then I used to
So where
buy
did all
them
your
for
choking
150.
fetish, like vibe? That's definitely not FHM or like GQ
no when we
vibe.
first met. And that time.
What?
Yeah.
When we first met, Mark, I put into
Yeah.
context, you were like this tanned, quite scary, like looking individual where I thought there's no fucking chance this guy's gonna be interested in me. Like, there you were, fucking the opposite, latched on. Do you know what I mean? For the fucking visa. Anyway, frothing. And I was this
Latched
sort
on
of
for the visa. Listen to
bit of a SW raccoon. Do you know what I mean?
like
Southwest
fox.
London, just
Like
a fucking
fox in
fox
the-
in the night. Yeah, I
fox
was
in the night.
definitely like, I wouldn't say it was my best looks then. You know, I don't know. Like, I definitely think I've grown into myself a bit more.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah.
But you know,
10-year plan. That was the goal.
but like I don't really know where the like. So I can't exactly say the fetish met. Like when I wouldn't even had a bicep then. I feel like the fetish only comes when there's muscle involved.
No.
No, I absolutely am
you
certain
reckon?
that I think you'd dump a girl if there was no muscle on her.
That's
And you knew with me
historically
that I was
incorrect.
work in progress. You knew with me I was work in progress. There's nearly, 7 or 8 years between us.
Mm-hmm.
You knew that I was work in progress. You
Mature
looked at my
like a
mum
fine
and you
wine.
thought, you look okay. Do you know what I mean?
That's
'Cause
what
everyone
Richard
always...
said. That's what my dad said. He said, whenever you see a woman, make
Always
sure
look at the
before
mum,
you
yeah.
commit, make sure you look at the mother.
But it's true though.
Because if the mother's not very good looking, then that's what you're going to look forward to.
But is it not the same for then look at the dad and then you end
Yeah,
up
I
with
would
a
say
sugar
so. Yeah, I'd say so.
You end up fucking the father and you're like, oh my...
Oh, I'm
right,
sure
right,
that's
just
happened
having a
loads of
moment
times.
there. Yeah, that has happened many
Yeah,
times.
loads of times.
But yeah, I mean, look, you just knew that I was work in progress.
Of course.
Of course, love that. Of course. So
Yeah.
I kept you by.
Groomed you.
You. Oh my god! Don't say that. We're
I
gonna get
groomed
blocked.
you.
What Rochdale gang? Just like your new driver's license picture.
Yeah, definitely. That's going, if anything ever happens, that's definitely going.
That's going on the Daily Mail.
Yeah, that will be my Daily
Both
Mail
mine
picture.
and Mark's driving license photos literally look like we would either
Bonnie and Clyde.
we either have murdered people or are about to do a huge amount of fraud. Like we look like the two
Oh,
that
yes.
like
Yeah,
I'm wearing a grey
yeah,
hoodie and
yeah.
mine. I look like a convict.
Some disability fraud where
For some reason, I
you've
think I was
pretended to have a broken back and you've claimed benefits.
Like you're claiming every disability benefit, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you live,
All
oh my
I
god,
needed was like one of those things to go around my neck for whiplash.
like somebody like I saw that came out the job centre, like limped into the doctors and like walked straight out, and just because they could get their things signed off.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, we definitely don't look. And I think I was a bit inflamed, not inflamed. I actually look. I look quite glamorous in my driver's license, but in like an almost Russian escort way.
Yeah.
Because my lips look huge, my jawline looks quite pierced, and I've got obviously quite full eyelashes. My hair's down and blonde, and yeah, Mark's just looks like Rochdale.
Oh, look, you're no good.
You look like a drug dealer, but look, at this rate, we'll all be drug dealers.
A lot of people, when they first see me, or like they have very warped preconceived notions of who I am or what I'm about.
Yeah, because I would say that you don't, like, weirdly enough, you don't look very friendly, which is funny that, but neither do I. Everyone fucking annoys me that people always think that, like, I need to smile whilst I exercise. Like, fuck off. Like, have you trained hard enough? Here we go. Let's go back. Like, 'cause I'm trying to keep my composure when you film, like, for training, because, like, normal. But I do think it's one of those things. It's a bit weird. I don't think I've got a very friendly. Until you absolutely get talking to me, I'm not. I would probably also have a resting bitch face, but. Yeah, I mean, look, yeah, I think it's just the fact that you're a bigger human than the average man, and like men probably think, or women the same, that you're about to go and attack them. So who knows? On that note, you can hopefully not attack me.
I can't, because you're on that special moment of the month.
Okay,
So
Mark,
no
we did not need
sucky.
no sucky. There would be a lot more sucky if it was that. Mark,
Don't lie. We're married. Let's be honest.
we're fucking married, and that's the end of the podcast. Speak to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.